Hey guys, today's story is going to be about how the pen can be more powerful than the sword. The reason why I'm no longer allowed to play a talker character in TTRPGs. I'm a dangerous talker type of character. You know, those characters that instead of fighting, talk their way out of situations. I could tell you about the time I infiltrated an Imperial high-security garrison by pretending to be other, more well-known rebels that had kidnapped a governor. Those rebels held prisoner inside of that very facility. I could tell about the time that I tricked a lich to destroy its own phylactery, or the time I convinced the evil army to run headfirst into the trap that we prepared for them. Or the time that we got the BBAG and his bodyguards to strip from all their armor and magic items and weapons while the party waited around the corner. But none of those were why I had been banned from playing the talker of the group. This story happened many years ago, about the time that Wizards of the Coast had announced Fori. I had been invited to join a new group. There were 6 of us in total. A caster, a healer, a fighter, rogue, myself, and the GM. I had arrived late as I worked across town, and work ended when they got together. I get there, and am told that the rest of the party are finishing their characters, and it was not too subtly hinted that they could use another fighter type. I think about it for a minute, tell everyone, yeah, but there's this new class I want to try. It's a talker called a noble. The rest of the group aren't happy. None of them have heard of it before, and more to the point, them wanting a fighter to help protect the party. The GM asks if he could see the class, and I have the pamphlet on me, so I pass it over, as he's on the other side of the room. The fighter-type player takes a look at it, sees the crap saves, and the horrible attack progression, and he tries to veto the character right there, saying loudly to everyone, "He's gonna get the party killed. I'm gonna die because of having to protect you. What good are you gonna be? You can't fight or take a hit." I'm paraphrasing, but you get the basic idea. The GM sees the pamphlet, gives a deep sigh, but decides that the class is balanced, if seemingly a little weak. He allows it, but everyone sighs. I start making my character, and the rest of the party tries to convince me the entire time to go for a fighter type. At one point, I'm even shown the Duskblade class because of how cool it is to be a fighter that can cast spells. Lol. Even the GM, subtly to his credit, tried to convince me otherwise. When it became apparent I'm going to stay a talker, 2 people start making new characters for when I kill them, and everyone is shooting daggers at me and the guy who invited me to join their game. But an hour later, Alana was born. An elven crown prince who is running away from his duty to live a life of adventure before the crown is forced upon his head. He has a negative attack modifier, 8 HP at level 3, but what he does have is a lot of money. A minor, magic item of his choice, and a lot of charisma. You'll see when these last 2 are relevant soon. The GM starts us in front of a dungeon. I don't remember exactly why, and I didn't even know then, but here we were. The reason didn't matter too much to me. I was just excited to play. When we enter, in the very first room, there's a direwolf that made the room its lair. The direwolf sees us and gets ready to jump down on the intruders. Initiatives are rolled, and I go dead last. Then the cleric casts a buff on the fighter. The caster hits the wolf with a ray and moves behind the fighter for safety. The fighter, now newly buffed, steps forward and brings his great weapon down, striking the beast. Everyone cheers, and then the wolf attacks, scoring a crit on the fighter, taking half of his HP and nearly ripping his arm off. The fighter looks at me and says, "See? This is what a team player does. He protects the party. If he had hit you, you'd be dead." I nod, He's right after all. That would have killed me outright. The rogue moves behind the beast and backstabs it. The fighter then looks at me, after congratulating the rogue on the good hit, and says, "Now do what you're going to do so someone useful can go." The rogue and sorcerer laugh, and the cleric is looking at his spell sheet preparing their next move. I can't hit. I know this, and even if I did, that would only draw its attention onto me, which I couldn't survive. The GM's question of, "What are you gonna do?" hanging heavy in the air. Looking at my sheet, I noticed something. I had chosen an elven variant that gave me a +4 to charisma, giving me a 22 in it, and the list of skills for a noble aren't that long. But the skills that we do get bonuses for the most part. I had Handle Animal at max ranks, 6 + 8 + 2 class bonus, and a synergy bonus since my ranks in Ride were maxed out as well, for another +2. I have a +16 Handle Animal. I look at the GM and said, "I'm going to tame it." "What?" the GM asks. "I'm going to tame it." I pull out one of the steaks from my bag. This steak is masterwork. I bought the best quality food, which I had, actually. Again, the noble started out with a charisma bonus times 500 GP, and received that as a stipend per level, so with an extra 9,000 GP, I spent it to make sure that I only ate the best. Will that give me a bonus? He thinks about it and says yes. The rest of the party are dumbfounded. The fighter says, "That's stupid. It's already fighting us." The rogue smiles, and the source is preparing to cast a killing blow on the beast when I fail. That bonus stake gave me a +18. I roll, and I get a crit. The GM decides that the crit moves it from hostile to neutral, and then my roll carries it the rest of the way from neutral to friendly. I got a direwolf pet, named it Bubbles, and begrudgingly, the cleric heals it from the damage that they caused. The fighter is muttering under his breath. The sorcerer is shaking his head, not believing that worked, and hating the name I had given the wolf. And the cleric is upset using a spell on the new party member that they had just been fighting. The GM gives me bonus XP, something that annoys the rogue and the fighter, but we move on to the next room, me riding my new mount. In the next room, there was a gargantuan earth elemental asleep. The fighter and the rogue are salivating, thinking of the experience and gems encrusted in the elemental's body. The rest of the party instantly start thinking of new strategies. The first round is a surprise. The second round it's flat-footed, just waking up. That's 2 rounds of attacks on it, at a low DC, without it being able to do anything. And then I speak up. "We're gonna sneak past it." They all look at me. "What?" 3 people say in unison. "No, we're not," declared the sorcerer. Now, my class gives me a +5 to diplomacy and deception. I had chose as my bonus feat one that gave me a +2 to diplomacy and deception, and the magic item I chose gave me a +2 to those skills as well. I asked the GM if I can get a diplomacy check versus the party's will save, and he allows it, not realizing what he had just agreed to. I roll with my +21, and the highest roll of the party is +6. They didn't stand a chance. They all reluctantly agreed to sneak past the sleeping monster and let it rest. At this point, the rogue remembers that I'm wearing full plate armor, and that will be hard penalty to my sneak. If the elemental hears me, then the fight is on. I smile and say, "It's not me who needs the check. I'm riding Bubbles, and a direwolf has a lot better dex and is skilled in sneak." Bubbles made the check easily, and we go into the next room. In the next room, there was a tribe of orcs. A full, honest-to-God tribe of orcs. The GM threw an entire tribe of orcs at us. The entire party looked at me, hoping I had an idea. I asked for clarification on what he meant by a tribe, and was informed something along the lines of about 200 orcs. The party looked back at me, and the fighter asked, "How are we going to get out of this one?" Looking back now, I'm going to surprise they were looking at me for this. The party had been looking to the fighter to be the leader, but I guess it makes sense. I had gotten them out of the last 2 fights. I think about it for a moment, and then another moment. We're not getting out of it. And then I tell the GM, I'm gonna yell the worst insult I can think of to the orcs in Orcish, rolling a diplomacy check, which equated to about 36 in total, somewhere around there. It's a pretty bad insult. The rest of the party are angry at me again. I can see them seething, biting their lips. The world legit stood still for me for a moment, and someone, I forgot whom, asked me, "What the heck did I just do?" The next words I remember, I actually said verbatim, looking at the fighter character who was doing his best to kill me with a look. "You guys are gonna fight. I'm going to run." Without missing a beat, the rogue says, "I'm gonna run too." I say, "Yes, you are." Turning to the fighter, who has a look of pure shock on his face, and after 1 round, "You're going to run too." He gulped and nodded, looking at the sorcerer and cleric, and they just nod. This was a week before 300 came out, and I wish I had been witty enough to say something like, "Tonight we dine in hell," or some epic quote from the trailer, but my mind wasn't that sharp. The rogue and I ran, and the other 3 stayed to fight the now massive horde of angry orcs that I had set upon us with that epic insult. At this moment, I stopped paying attention to the fight, my mind on my plan. When the GM got to us, he said, "I'm gonna skip you guys. You're just running." The rogue nodded, and I said, "No." "What?" the rogue asked, looking confused. "We're not running," I tell her. Looking at the GM, I stop in front of her and tell her to steal one of the gems from the elemental. "You know we don't have time to get treasure, right?" I nodded. "If I mess up, we're dead. You know that, right?" "Then don't mess up." She swallowed and rolled her dice. The world stood still again, and every bounce of the dice took an eternity as we all held out breath. There, the rogue stood, hidden still in the shadows, holding a jewel freshly taken out of the still sleeping elemental. "Now what?" "Toss it to me." She does, and I catch it just as our allies are running in, a horde of orcs chasing them. I toss the gem underhanded at the League Orc. The GM blinked once, twice, a look of confusion on his face. "Okay," he said clearly, not getting it. "Instinct. Something is tossed to you about the size of a ball. It's instinctual to catch it," I explain. The GM's now a little dubious about what I had planned, and he bit his lip. "So you want the orc to catch what you just threw at it? Alright. That's going to be a diplomacy check, I guess." The party smiles, beginning to see where I was going with this, and remembering my insane diplomacy. A quick check later, the GM declares, "Okay, the lead orc is now standing there, holding a gem, dropping his weapon to catch it. You have successfully disarmed that one orc." "Perfect." I bang on the elemental's leg to wake it, and point at the orc saying they stole your gem. His eyes widen, now realizing what I had planned. "Okay, give me a deception check," he called, in one of those voices that says, I don't like how this is going to work. My hand shaking, all eyes on me, the entire party counting on me to get them out of this. I pick up my D20 and pray to the gods of dice, hoping that my 21 would be enough to get me through this. They heard my prayer as I critted. The party erupted in a roar of laughter as the GM describes how this gargantuan elemental tears through and destroys the entire tribe of orcs. After, due to my crit, the GM said that the elemental turns to look at my character, and as a thank you for letting us know about its theft, gives me an even larger diamond than the one that was stolen. This is where the GM called it for the night. He gave us our experience, gave me a begrudging bonus for derailing all of his encounters, and even went so far as to call my normal GM, who he was friends with, to tell him not to allow me to be a talker in his campaign because I was far too dangerous. The rest of the party left with smiles, even apologizing for how the beginning of the night went, and said I was always welcome back. I only played with them once more the following week, as there was a major life change for the GM and the group fell apart without him. A year ago, I ran into the fighter at the local Adventure League night. We were both at the same table. When he saw me, he smiled and asked what I was playing, and I told him a monk talker. He looked at his daughter and said, "Watch this guy. He'll teach you what to do." But that's a story for another time. Well guys, I hope you liked this story as much as I did. I enjoy the fact that the OP actually played a non-combatant character, and they did it really well, it seems. I am kind of wanting to hear what other stories that this particular individual has to tell. From my experience, most people don't ever really play a talker character. That might just be from my personal experience, or maybe it's a general rule of thumb that the mass majority of people do not, or maybe never will, play a talker character. It's not for everyone, but there is some good fun to be had with such tomfoolery, as you can see from the story. And the only other thing I can think of to say right now is that this was actually requested by the OP themselves for me to narrate. So, I hope you enjoyed my narration of your story. But in any case, guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have a story that you'd like me to narrate, let me know. And as always, thanks for watching, and have a good one.